Alrighty. We'll give people a minute to jump in. If you're just joining, say a quick hello in the chat, name, location, and let us know what's making you smile this summer. Matt Berkey, I see you getting ready to ride some bikes next week for Ragbri. Nice to see you. I see Shelby from Green Bay, running a safety-based summer camp. That's cool. Love to learn more about that. I see a few fellow Maryland folks in the chat. Nice to see you all. And some new faces too. We're really excited about this session because it'll be a nice mix of some of our library partners and then our Safe Routes partners. We hope this will be a chance for all of us to kind of get to know each other and connect and learn about each other's work. So we're really excited about this opportunity today. I'll give people another minute to go ahead and jump in the chat, say a quick hello, let us know where you're joining from, let us know what is making you smile this summer. We love to hear all the good news and positive things that are happening in your life. I think somebody said dogs make me smile. I have my dog next to me, so if you hear barking, apologies. The mail already came, so that's out of the way. But if there are any other random sounds, you might hear a little bit of barking in the background. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and keep moving on here, and so we're just gonna start out with a few quick hellos, introductions, and then we will get started with our session for today. And again, if you're just joining, go ahead and say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, what's making you smile this summer. The chat will be open throughout the entire session, so feel free to say hello and add any thoughts and ideas into our chat box here. We love to hear from you. So I'm Corey Johnson, and I am the Senior Program and Engagement Manager here at the Safe Routes Partnership. I am one of the hosts for our session today. For those of you who might not be familiar with Safe Routes Partnership, we're a national organization. We've been around a little over 20 years, and our mission is to advance safe walking, biking, and rolling to everyday places. So our work really started with Safe Routes to School programs and has since expanded to Safe Routes to Parks and now Safe Routes to Libraries. And so we're really focused on making sure that people can get to the places that they need to get to in their communities by walking, biking, scooting, and being able to do that safely. So we're really excited to bring Safe Routes to Libraries into the conversation about what does it mean to live in a, walkable, bikeable, rollable community, and really center libraries as a key community destination. So that's a little bit about us. And Katie, I didn't ask if you wanted to introduce yourself and say hello from Urban Libraries Council, but you're welcome to do your own introduction if you'd like to.
Thanks, Corey. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Sullivan. I'm a senior program manager on the Urban Libraries Council team. We're a membership association of about 200 of the US and Canada's leading public library systems. And we're just here today to support Corey. It's been an incredible partnership working with the Safe Routes Partnership on the Safe Routes to Libraries initiative. As well as the Association for Rural and Small Libraries. So really excited. Corey and I have been, this has been almost 2 years coming, getting to gather everybody together like this for Safe Routes to Library. So really just thrilled to be here and see everyone. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, I know that some of you have been kind of a part of this journey over the past 2 years and have probably been wondering, what's going on with Safe Routes to Libraries? When will I see updates? And so we're hoping that what we'll be sharing this summer is kind of like the culmination of all this work that we've been doing over the past 2 years, and then all this work that a lot of you have been doing for way longer than that. So we're really excited to finally be here with some exciting updates and things to share. So that's a little bit about us. So we'll be here throughout the day. And then just a quick run through of our agenda. So we're kind of in the welcome and introduction section now. Thanks for those of you who are sharing in the chat. We love to see you. I have a few opening announcements, a few housekeeping announcements, and also some things that you all might be interested in that'll kind of help you implement some Safe Routes activities over the next few months. Then we have a quick icebreaker activity. It'll be on Mentimeter. So I always feel like I say icebreaker and people get nervous or concerned. It'll be really easy, just like a few polls and comment boards, nothing too detailed, but we'd love to get a sense of who's in our virtual room. And then a quick recap of Safe Routes to Libraries, followed by a wonderful presentation from Taylor Arnold from Billings Public Library. He's an awesome Makerspace librarian who's going to share some of the really cool work that he's doing to kind of integrate what he does in his Makerspace with traffic safety education. So we're super excited to have him on board. And then we'll wrap up with a quick group discussion, a little bit more, networking with this group, and then we'll wrap up and talk a little bit about what we'll be focusing on for our August session. So I hope this all sounds good to you all. And so I'll go ahead and just start with a few opening reminders and a few announcements. So like I mentioned, we're recording the session. We will send out the recording and the slide deck afterwards. So if you all miss anything or want to go back and review anything, or if you want to share this presentation with a colleague, we'll have that information for you ready to share either later today or sometime tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. We also love to get questions from you all. So if you have questions, I believe the Q&A box is enabled. It might be under the little more section on your Zoom toolbar. You'll see a little circle with three dots that says more. If you click on that, there's a Q&A box. So if you have questions for us or questions for Taylor, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And then if you just have like general, comments and things that you all want to share in the chat box is open as well. I also always forget to mention that I like Zoom meetings because there's a little like react button at the bottom. So if you see something or hear something that that you like, that you want to shout out, please feel free to use the little react button at the bottom. There's a little heart there, and it'll allow you to drop in a thumbs up or an emoji or whatever else you want to put. I see somebody's already in there. Thanks, Nicole. So we love to kind of get those reactions from you all as well over the session. So if you hear something you like or want to give a little shout out with the react button, feel free to do that as well. Okay, so two quick announcements and then we will jump in for today. So the first one is that here at the Safe Routes Partnership, we do a annual conference every other year. So in 2024, we all convened in Fort Collins, Colorado to talk about all things Safe Routes related and had a really great time in Fort Collins exploring their Safe Routes to School program, their bike and pedestrian programs, their infrastructure. And so we're back this year for our conference in 2026. We will be in beautiful Minneapolis, Minnesota to convene again as a Safe Routes community and talk about what's happening both in Minnesota but also nationally when it comes to Safe Routes work. So we're really excited about that. If you haven't heard of the conference or interested in joining, I think Katie just dropped the link in the chat here. Feel free to kind of peruse our conference website. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. For those of you who aren't super familiar with Safe Routes or Safe Routes to School, it's kind of like libraries in the sense that like there are a bunch of them and they're spread out all over the place, and that you don't often get a chance to connect with fellow Safe Routes practitioners. And so our conference is really our big way for us to come together as a community to connect around walking, biking, and rolling. And then my next announcement is that we have a mini grant opportunity that we wanted to share with you all. So this is an event called Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Our Safe Routes people might know about it. Our library folks, this might be new for you. But basically, every November, November 14th, students across the country celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. And this is a chance for them to honor Ruby Bridges and her historic walk to school in the 1960s and pair that with encouraging people to walk and bike to school today. And the whole idea is around inspiring young people to be positive change makers in their community. And so for the past 2 years, we've been able to offer mini grants to communities that want to lead Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebrations. And we're doing that again this year for the third year in a row. And so we're really excited to expand our Ruby Bridges program, get more students walking and biking to school. Libraries are eligible to apply for funding, and people are also allowed to partner with libraries in a Safe Routes project. So you're somebody who's kind of like thinking about trying out something Safe Routes related, but you're not sure what to do. This could be a good opportunity to get a little bit of funding for a Ruby Bridges project. And I wanted to share just a few quick examples of how libraries have been involved in this event in the past, in case you're kind of wondering, like, what does this look like? What could I possibly do for Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day? How is this relevant to me? Or if you're a Safe Routes practitioner, how can you involve your library in your event this year? So these are a few examples that we've seen from libraries across the country celebrating Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. One is just like hosting a Ruby Bridges activity or event at your library. So this picture here on the far right is from a library, I believe in Illinois. This was one of our mini grantees, mini grant grantees, and students actually walked over to the library and did a Ruby Bridges activity at the library. The picture next to it, I believe it's from Queens, New York. The students took a walk from their school to the library, and then the librarians hosted like a learning session about Ruby Bridges. So students were able to learn about Ruby and her story. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, this is a children's librarian in Washington, D.C., who came and did a Ruby Bridges story time at a local elementary school. So that was one that I went to a few years ago. The library was right next to the school, so the librarian just walked over and did a story time for the students, and the students had their walk to school. And the last one is not a library project. This was from a local organization, but this is in Kansas City, Kansas. And for their celebration, they did a story walk, a Ruby Bridges story walk. So for those of you who might be in the library space and are familiar with story walk, this has been something that we've seen incorporated a lot into our Ruby Bridges celebrations. So there's a lot more information. We're going to have a whole Ruby Bridges webinar in August, but I did want to put this on your radar now that this is an opportunity that's available right now. Applications are open. We'll drop the link in the chat here. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. But we'd love to see more libraries participate in this event, either by receiving a grant themselves or partnering with a local organization or school to host a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So more coming in August, and the applications are open through September 4th. So there's plenty of time to kind of determine what you all want to focus on. Okay, that's enough talking from me. We would like to switch gears a little bit and hear a little bit from you all. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our Mentee here and just let's see. All right. So Katie dropped a link in the chat, and let me know if you can see my screen. So we wanted to get a sense of who's in our room today, and kind of get us connecting with each other a little bit. So my first question is just what describes your role? We'd love to hear if you're a library staff, a safe routes coordinator, maybe a bike ped advocacy organization, maybe you're from a local government agency. If other, feel free to drop in the chat if none of these really describe who you are. But take a minute and jot down or add in your response and let us know what you're representing and what your role is in this space. We'll give people a few more minutes. And it's nice. It seems like there's a good mix of some library people, safe routes coordinators, local government people. We always say that safe routes kind of takes, everyone. And so it's cool that everybody is in this room with us today. I'll give us a few more minutes. We can also share this Mentee out afterwards, so I can send that along with the slide deck and the recording. Alrighty. So thanks for starting with that one. And then we have two more. So our next question is, what do you love about your library? I think that part of the reason why we started Safe Routes Library, or part of the reason why I was interested in Safe Routes to Libraries was that I'm a library lover and really believe in libraries as essential destinations and places that people need to be able to get to easily. And so I'm at the library all the time. I was there picking up a book yesterday. Through interlibrary loan, I saw somebody put that in there. So library is a really important and special place for me. But I'm curious for you all, what do you all love about your local library? Let's see, community, that seems to be a big one. Community hub, connection. Oh, we create our own books. That sounds interesting and exciting. Expansive programming, breadth of media, resource center. It's a place for everyone. Love that. Free resources. I see free a few times in here. The library is a third space, right? So it's one of those spaces where, one of like the few spaces where it's kind of open to, open to everyone. And, being that it's such an important third space, we want to make sure that it's easy to access library spaces. The people, interactive, local, quiet, entertainment. We'll take a few more and then jump into our last one. Childhood memories. I like that one. I have lots of memories of like library story times and things. Air conditioning. Yes, honestly, again, we're talking about, it's hot outside, it's summertime. For people who don't have access to air conditioning, a library can be a really important space just to kind of get that respite, be able to, cool down, connect with people. All right, great. And then our final question, and this is actually, you all are going to help us out with something. So in a minute, I'm going to talk a little bit about our upcoming Safe Routes to Libraries Resource Center. And one thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to create like a Safe Routes or a walk, ride, and roll reading list. And Katie and I just didn't want to like come up with it ourselves. We wanted to hear from you all about what are some of your favorite children's and young adult books that feature walking, biking, and rolling. So that can include like skaters, skateboards, rollerblades, all genres. So if you want to take a moment and drop in any of your favorite children's books or young adult books that feature somebody walking, biking, rolling, we're going to type all this up and add it to our walk, ride, and roll reading list for our resource center. So we'll give you a minute to think about some of your favorites, maybe some people in your lives, they have their favorites, and we'll put this into a really nice reading list that's curated by you all. So thanks for helping out with this. Clifford Takes a Walk, that's always a popular one for us. The Hobbit, lots of walking in that. Whale Rider, Duck on a Bike, Junie B. Jones. If You Give a Girl a Bike, need a few of those. The Wizard of Oz, yes, another one, lots of walking. Pete the Cat, My First Skateboard, I haven't heard of that one. Bicycles Around the World, cool. Curious George. There's some new ones in here that I haven't heard of before. Oh, here's a great list from Green Communities Canada. Goosebumps, maybe, depending on the story. Mouse and the Motorcycle, Cabs for Sale. Awesome. And if you all think of any others, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can, take the link and round out our walk, ride, and roll list and add to some of the books that we already have in our current list. So I'll give it one more minute and then we will circle back to our presentation. Where's Waldo? Another one that has a lot of walking. All right. So thank you all for joining in, for letting us get to learn a little bit more about you. We're going to do a very, very quick recap of Safe Routes to Libraries and kind of where we are now, since it's been a while since you all have had updates from us, and then I'll hand things over to Taylor. So as I mentioned, libraries are essential destinations. We want to make sure that people can get to them easily. And one thing that we found in our Safe Routes to Libraries journey is that libraries are already doing a lot of this Safe Routes work. So everything from bike repairs, bike lending services, bike pedestrian and transit education, infrastructure projects, story walks, walking school bus programs. We kind of started with Safe Routes to Libraries. We said we're not starting anything new because libraries are already doing a lot of this work. We're really just here to kind of, pull those ideas and pull those different, best practices and turn it into, and be able to share it with our national audience. So Katie and I started this project back in 2024, I believe. And we started out by doing a national survey of libraries, and we hosted a bunch of listening sessions in 2025 to really hear from our library partners about the Safe Routes work that they're doing, opportunities to do more Safe Routes work, what walking, biking, and rolling challenges they see in their communities, and really thinking about how we can kind of address some of the concerns that people are seeing and also kind of grow this Safe Routes to Libraries movement. So the Urban Libraries Council just published a Safe Routes to Libraries impact brief that talks about all the results from that national scan and kind of shares a lot about what libraries are currently doing to support Safe Routes work. And Katie's going to drop that into the chat as well. We're also about to publish a Safe Routes to Libraries Resource Center on our website with all kinds of great resources and ideas for Safe Routes for library staff, Safe Routes practitioners, local agency staff, library visitors. So stay tuned. That will be coming out in a few weeks. We also something else really exciting that Urban Libraries Council is working on a Safe Routes to Libraries GIS tool. So for those of you who are into maps and GIS, that'll be what our August session is going to focus on. So a little sneak peek for you all, more about this GIS tool on August 11th, I believe. And of course, we have the Safe Routes to Libraries virtual learning series, which is really about just sharing best practices, tools, resources, building connections between our library staff and our Safe Routes practitioners. So one thing we heard was that a lot of library staff were saying, like, I don't really feel connected to Safe Routes in my community or our local transportation agency or engineers or planners or public health people. So we hope to kind of build those connections in this space and of course, grow the Safe Routes to Libraries movement, which we're really excited about. And you all are a big and important part of that. So we hope that this can kind of continue to gain momentum and grow as we get some of these new resources out. So we've been up to a lot, and we're excited to be here and share some of this work with you all. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn everything over to our wonderful presenter, Taylor Arnold from Billings Public Library in Montana. And Taylor's going to share about how he uses his Makerspace to support Safe Routes work. And we just invited Taylor because he's so inspiring and a really great example of how libraries are already doing Safe Routes to Libraries work and will hopefully inspire you to either do something at your own library or to partner with a local library to lead different Safe Routes programs. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Taylor. And again, if you all have questions, feel free to put them either in the Q&A box, or if you can't find that, you can drop them in the chat as well. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. Taylor, it is all you.
So cool. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm very excited. This was such a cool opportunity to be able to do. I'm going to get my screen shared here and put my presentation up. And if I could just get a verbal confirmation that we can all see the screen.
Yep,
Okay.
looks good.
So cool. Awesome. Well, yes, just to reiterate some, stuff that Corey and Kitty have done, I was so stoked when I got, a newsletter from, I think, Let's Move in Libraries, which is a great organization really working in this kind of capacity with Safe Routes as well, about some groundwork being done with Safe Routes to Libraries. I was immediately interested in being a part of it or sharing my insight or the work that we've done. And since that time, right, I've spoken with some folks during those listening sessions, and I was invited to come just give a presentation on all of the cool work I've done. I'm very, very excited to be able to share some of these programs and events I've done in this capacity, and I've titled my presentation here, Creative Routes to Safe Routes. So start off just a little bit about me. My name is Taylor Arnold, right? I work here at the Billings Public Library in Billings, Montana, and I am our Makerspace Librarian. So a lot of us are probably somewhat familiar with a makerspace, but essentially it's a room, right? Typically in a library or community space that provides access to a range of different equipment and emerging technologies, 3D printers, sewing machines, laser engravers. So I help coordinate and run this space here at the library. It's pretty new. It's called the Co-Lab. We've been just open for about almost 2 years now, and we do everything in there from reservations on equipment for someone who wants to come in to use a sewing machine for their own project, to different programs and events in learning some of these tools and pieces of equipment. And we also check out different kits that can be taken home, like books. So prior to this role at the library, I was a reference librarian in adult services, where I did a lot of this kind of similar work, and as well as a library assistant in our circulation department. So prior experience, I've got a bachelor's of arts in American studies, and I served a year with AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps, which is kind of like a domestic Peace Corps, or like a maybe like an extension of the New Deal Civilian Conservation Corps. And both these experiences really kind of inspired me to learn about communities, to work with communities, to understand space and place and how we interact with it in more unique or intentional ways. So a lot of this kind of is the work I'm going to share today is a reflection of that experience. Some personal things about me. I like cats. I have two beautiful cats as the librarian tradition. I also like to ride my bike, go on walks, and skateboard. And you can see here in this very professional headshot that clearly shows my face a picture of me on our bike library, which I'll get to in just a second. But we do a lot of cool different events with this bike library, and I get to dress up and have a lot of fun with it. So it's very exciting. A little bit about Billings. For many of us who may be unfamiliar, Billings, Montana is the biggest city in Montana. So by Montana standards, it's pretty urban. There's about 120,000 folks that live in the city proper, but the library covers a reach that's much larger, the entire Yellowstone County or the Billings Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is about a little bit over 2,500 square miles. And you can see the library down here in this picture. I've got it pointed. It's kind of in the downtown core of Billings. We are the only branch for the entire service area. So we do not have any suburban branches or smaller locations necessarily throughout this entire area. This is the main downtown branch that covers the county. So outreach is a huge aspect of the work that we do. And as you can imagine, Billings, like a lot of Western U.S. cities, is fairly car-centric. So we do a lot of, work outside the library with a giant semi-truck bookmobile we have that we take to the edge of the county. We have a senior outreach van that goes around the city. We have lockers, book lockers located throughout the city where folks can pick up holds. So we do a lot of this work of getting out of the library, just in general, because of just the situation that we have. In a more whimsical way that we do that's really fun that I get to do, is through our bike library, which is kind of like the anchor for a lot of the work that I'm going to talk about in this presentation here. So our bike library is what it sounds like. It's a library on wheels, essentially. We use it for a range of different events that I'll kind of chat about. But it's really fun. Obviously, we're not riding 10 miles to the other side of town on it, though I'm convinced that I could do it if I work up my calves a little bit. But it's perfect for taking it downtown to the city center to be a part of different events. It was built in 2018 by a local bike company here in Montana called Coaster Cycles. They make a lot of cargo bikes, some really cool looking ones. It was heavily supported funding wise through the foundation here at the library, one of the supporting nonprofits, and kind of resurrected and brought to life by an AmeriCorps Vista a couple years back before I worked at the library. So with it, right, we use it for a range of things, but it kind of has like a staple kind of structure to it. Every summer, a handful of librarians here and staff members get together and we kind of talk about what events we want to do with the bike library for that summer. And so each person will generally pick a stop that we will create that we will go to each week. And it could be a range of things. We've done a lot with it. For the past 2 or so years, I've taken the bike to the skate park here that's in downtown Billings, where I would just hand out free books, share library resources, help folks get signed up for library cards, and just skateboard with the local kids and folks there. We've also taken it to the park to do yoga. We've brought yoga mats, met up with a yoga instructor there and had yoga sessions. We've brought VR headsets to the park and let folks try VR. We've done craft events. Conversational Spanish speaking groups have used it as kind of a meetup point. So many different things that we do in the summer as these kind of reoccurring stops, which is really, really fun and a really cool way to get just the library outside of the library. We also use it for more like structured or staple events that happen just downtown throughout the year. So you can see on the left here, I'm at our downtown trick-or-treating event. This one was really cool because I make a good witch, and also it was fun to have hair for a time being. That was a really good time, but we just brought that to the downtown event. We also participate in the different parades that happen throughout the year here in Billings, and so at the beginning of the summer when we're kind of planning out the programmings with the bike, we'll be sure to get on these vendors lists and just start kind of coordinating the events that we'll attend throughout the year. So after kind of like being a part of that bike library team for a while, I really started thinking about how I can expand the outreach or the reach of the bike and just programming at the library to be a little more intentional towards active transportation and thus safe routes. Uh, so 2024 was a great time for it. For a lot of libraries, the summer reading theme was Adventure Begins at Your Library. And I really wanted to kind of like capitalize on that theme and do a lot of programs and try a lot of ideas that I was interested in maybe blending or bridging that connection of libraries and active transportation. So this kind of like kicked off with a ribbon cutting of a bike repair stand that we put outside the library. You can see us here cutting the ribbon and the bike library in the back there. That really kind of kicked off this year of various different programs where I started exploring, how I can kind of bridge those connections. Here's just some pictures of some of the different kind of things that were taking place around that time. You can see our bike repair stand out front of the library. Below that, we have a gentleman putting a bike lock on his bike. We started offering bike locks available for folks to lock their bikes up if they did not have one outside the library. We started participating in different events being held by local bike advocacy groups like the Tour de Floor, which is just a fun bike parade that's held in Billings each year. I started thinking about how I could use the bike and make the makerspace more accessible outside the library. So I brought it downtown with different equipment like 3D pens, as you can see in this bottom center picture. We also just started kind of thinking about different ways the makerspace could be used in terms of transportation access or active transportation. So here's just a picture of a gentleman fixing his skateboard with or longboard with some makerspace tools we have. And then a really cool one that I got to do is just host skateboard camps and clinics. I would just ride the bike down to the skate park with 10 skateboards in it and some helmets, and we held some reoccurring skateboard camps and clinics here at the library or through the library over the last summers, and those are really fun and exciting events. So a big push towards these that I should really kind of send some like props to is our administration team here. They're so open to us thinking outside the box and really kind of like stretching the connections of where the library should be. They're super supportive of a lot of the work that we do and the opportunities that we get to kind of pursue, especially associated with our interests like doing skateboard clinics. So in these next few slides, I'm going to talk about some staple or like really well done or programs that I participated in and helped build that we've done over the past few years here, and how I kind of involved the makerspace or like aspects of creativity and making into that. So one is the Commuter Challenge, which is a annual event held here in Billings by the City of Billings, also in partnership with Riverstone Health, which is a nonprofit medical facility and organization here, and a few other partners like Yellowstone Public Radio. And it's a lot like summer reading. If anyone is familiar with that, you're essentially logging your trips over the month of June, and you're getting free prizes for logging those trips that are taken on pretty much anything outside of a automobile or vehicle. So any bike, bus, rolling that you might do. This event, this annual kind of month-long event starts each June with a kickoff party that we host at various places. And for the past 2 years, I've been the, I guess, craft bringer, the creativity bringer or activity bringer for the event. There's usually a lot happening, but last year, for example, you can see in the bottom right, we made tote bags. I brought iron-on logos of the commuter challenge that you could iron on to a tote bag and then design it with different bike parts and tools. Just this last June, I made a bunch of high-vis reflective stickers that you could place on your bike or helmet. And these are just really cool opportunities for the library and specifically our makerspace to be involved in, a new capacity with a program that's happening annually here in Billings. So this is a really fun one that I'm really grateful to be a part of, and I was invited to be on that committee just through the connections and different bike and active transportation programs I was hosting and doing here at the library. Another really awesome program that's remained here are travel trainings we've done with our city bus system, Met Transit. These are really cool because I think just buses are really awesome and taking the bus is really fun. Billings is so lucky for a city of our size to have actually a phenomenal bus system, which is really cool. These trainings were very chill, very low pressure. Folks could sign up beforehand and we would meet at the library. We would then walk to a nearby bus stop and just do a quick route, little loop around downtown, and then walk back to the library from a nearby spot. I created a coloring sheet of a city bus for it, which was really awesome too. I'm still really pushing that one day they'll put one of the designs that kids did on a bus as a wrap. I think that'd be super awesome. But this is such a cool event and program that we've continued to do. It's been really popular amongst kids here in Billings, which I think says a lot about just the interest there could be in riding buses as a main form of transportation. So, and maybe one of the biggest collaborative events we held that required a lot of creativity is our bike rodeo. I'm sure many folks have heard of bike rodeos. They're so fitting for a Western town just in terms of the rodeo aspect. But this was just a huge collaborative effort with the children's department here at the library, the City of Billings planning team, Billings TrailNet, which is a bike and trail advocacy group here, and so many others, including Riverstone Health and a local bike repair bike shop. And there were so many events here. Really, we made an insane amount of really cool things like this bike wash up here. This was made with a lot of help from the children's department. It's just PVC pipe and pool noodles hooked up to a hose and a bubble machine in it. And this was so fun to do. It gets 100 degrees here in the summer in Billings. So this is a really great event. We had obstacle courses and ramps that kids and folks could use to build confidence on their bikes. We taught turn signals, riding on the road or trail safely. We gave away free helmets, did slow bike races. This was such a phenomenal event that I think really helped kind of build this community and connection of biking here in Billings, a place that's maybe not necessarily known for biking, or at least working its way up to biking. So really what I want to say is, even a place like Billings that isn't, in the top 10 list of most bikeable cities in the United States, has a lot of active work going on in terms of active transportation and a lot of this groundwork that involves, right, creating safe routes to a lot of these essential places like libraries. I think, as many of us probably do, libraries are situated to be crucial spaces for sharing these resources and developing a lot of this, insight in how we navigate a city and how we get to places, because libraries are a reflection of a community, and not only that, they're a reflection of each individual person in that community. So even if there's not a big bike culture in a town or city, there's a handful of people who probably love riding bikes, and them having the opportunity to learn more about it and see exposure to that others are, interested in helping increase the bikeability and safety of a community is really important. So thanks for listening. Here's a great picture of me wearing my helmet with really cool stickers on it. You can see Yeehaw there. They're very reflective. It's very safe. Some contact information for me. Feel free to reach out if you have questions about any of the work we've done here. You're also welcome to follow some of our social media pages. The Collab Makerspace has a separate Instagram here, BPL Collab, and our bike library has an Instagram, BPL Bike Library, where you can see all the different stuff that we're doing and hosting throughout the year here at the library. So thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions if we're interested in doing that, and I can talk more about anything in the presentation.
Hi Taylor, thanks so much for joining. Sorry, my internet literally just like cut out, so I was frantically trying to get back into the space, but I got in just in time to hear the end of your presentation. So thank you so much for being here. I think that what you work on is so, inspirational and exciting and a great example of what Safe Routes to Libraries can look like. And like I mentioned before, we've talked about Safe Routes to Libraries being something that a lot of, libraries are doing. And so you were doing a lot of this work even before you kind of officially said this is what Safe Routes to Libraries is. And so I just love all the work that you're doing and your passion and commitment to this, and also just that you're really uplifting both like the makerspace and also transportation and traffic safety in Billings. I'm curious from this group if any of you all have collaborated with your like makerspace librarians, or if you have a makerspace in any of your local libraries. If you want to give like a little quick thumbs up or reaction in the chat. I've done I've been to like maker spaces and libraries and DIY spaces, but haven't done a whole lot of collaborations. And Taylor, I feel like what you shared is a really great example of what a maker space can offer to safe routes programs, and then vice versa. Like I never thought about like designing high visibility stickers for bike helmets, or having people come and like repair their skateboards and longboards. That's such a cool way to elevate your space and really provide that service to people. So
Yeah, yeah,
love that.
100%. Yeah, there's so
Okay.
many,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
so many different things a makerspace can do in terms of active transportation, from 3D printed like bike parts and valve caps to GIS tools and mapping. So yes, there's so many awesome things that I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so I have a few questions. There are some questions in the chat, and then also if anybody wants to come off mute and ask questions or drop another question in the chat or Q&A box, we would love to take your questions for Taylor as well. So Taylor, first question for you. I figured this question would come up when you were talking about the skateboard clinics, because we get this a lot with some of like our Safe Routes events. So for the skateboard clinics and other things where you're getting patrons on wheels, does your library or administration have pushback around insurance or liability issues? And we get this question a lot with Safe Routes activities and like getting people on bikes or scooters. So just curious if you have any insights into how you've addressed some of the liability concerns that sometimes come up.
Yeah, that is a really good question, and I think one of concern in general when doing a program, that is maybe somewhat inherently dangerous. We do have a waiver that folks have to sign that's been cleared through the city's legal team. We also partner typically, especially with the skateboard clinics, with the Parks and Rec department here, which I think has a lot more kind of like criteria and some insight in how these programs should be hosted safely for appropriate liability and potential injury. So yeah, there's definitely some deeper work in terms of ensuring that a program like that is safely conducted. But I think it helps again to have an administration team that's willing to go up to bat for you and kind of explore all those options to ensure you're covering all your bases.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you mentioned those partnerships, like I think, and you mentioned a bunch of different partners who you work with. So like the planning department and like local organizations, I think the public health department, like those are all kinds of partners that are really typical in safe routes work. And so it's cool to see like all of them be a part of something like creating a bike rodeo. And I love how
Yeah,
that collaboration really, really works for you all.
yeah.
Um, Another question. Did you work with any transit agencies for your bike rodeo? This is a person who often work with transit agencies for bike rodeos. So just curious about that. And I guess like with the transit training too, how did that collaboration work and get started?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think for the bike rodeo we worked with the local transit uh, group here, but we did do a lot of work in kind of like developing a rapport throughout that time. I think there was specifically one staff with the city transit that was really interested in doing different outreach and building the capacity of the bus system here. And I think we somehow crossed paths and were able to just start communicating more and thinking of ideas and ways that we both could work together. The buses here are really cool, like mini buses. They have bike racks on the front. So I know that they've attended a handful of different events we've done associated with biking. They play a huge role in the commuter challenge that we do each year as well. So, um, yeah, I guess, I just developed the conversation with them over time, but there was never any too deep of involvement outside of our travel trainings that we've done specifically at the library. So,
Great. I have two more questions for you. Another one, we have a question in the chat. Could you talk more about the bike wash feature at bike rodeos? When you mentioned, I saw the bike wash in the impact brief, and I was like, this sounds intriguing and something like our Safe Routes partners and library partners would be interested in. So, like, what is it and how does it work? Can you
oh my
tell us some
gosh,
of the
yeah.
tips and tricks for that one?
Yeah, I have to give major props to our children's department here at the library, which are maybe made of some of the most creative people here, just in terms of like DIY and making things really awesome. So yeah, it's really just PVC pipe that a few staff members from down there had some help creating and conjoining together with zip ties and attachments. It's truly DIY in the sense that that's really all the structure is. It's PVC pipe with holes poked into the top of it, and then a hose connection nozzle or valve towards the end that routes water up through it and then comes out to the holes on the top. We put pool noodles that we had lying around, just zip tied to it there to, of course, brush you and clean off all your debris. And then adding a bubble machine just on the side was just a really cute touch to it. We put it in our kind of roundabout drop off in the library's parking lot. Also, an important part of the bike rodeo, we shut down the entire parking lot of the library for that, which provided all the space to use, which again, super great that administration is open to doing that for events. But yeah, we didn't follow any schematics or blueprints as far as I know for the bike wash, but I totally would be happy to share its construction and kind of how it's set up with anyone who's curious. We do still have it in our possession, so
Yeah, I think there are people who'd like to see how you how you made that happen. We hear a lot about bike rodeos, but I haven't like really seen a bike wash before, seen a bike wash be a part of a bike rodeo. And I imagine there are a lot of people who'd be interested in kind of adding that in as an additional feature. Okay, I have one final question for you, Taylor. So I'm curious, like we're talking about safe routes to libraries and making, walking, biking, rolling to the library more accessible. Let me think about how to phrase this question. I guess, what are your dreams for safe routes to libraries in Billings? So you've kind of done all these amazing things, and I'm curious, like what's next for you? What are you dreaming about? What are you inspired by?
that is a really good question, because it's one thing to do events and programs, associated with biking and skateboarding in Billings, but it's another thing to really start diving into, well, how can it literally be physically safer to access the library in anything other than a vehicle? And that's a really hard question, especially in a place like Billings where it is so car dominant. The library is on the edge of downtown, so there's a very busy street that's a one way right outside the library. So it's a four-lane one-way road that is supposed to be a shorter or a lower mile per hour road, but of course it's a major throughway for downtown. So I think looking forward, it'd be really awesome to build some bigger connections with folks in planning or other groups in Billings that are working on traffic calming measures and other, placemaking aspects that can make physically this space in the block around the library calmer and safer for folks, just crossing the street. And it could be as simple as, designing crosswalks and with beautiful murals like you might have seen to help incentivize slower movement of vehicles near the library. So I think moving forward, it'd be really great to start exploring those practical things. There is a giant lot next to the library that is vacant right now. It's just a dirt lot from an old business. So pipe dream would be to buy that lot and turn it into a park or something like that. Maybe a giant
Yeah.
skate park. I don't know. But so many options that, when you really start to think big, would be so cool to do. But of course, you really get into a confusing and kind of scary world of zoning and code that I think can be kind of intimidating when you're kind of outside of that urban planner mindset.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And one of our intentions with the Safe Routes to Libraries, movement too is to kind of like connect those partners because there are people in the community who, they know the zoning and know how to kind of navigate that space. And so one thing that Katie and I have talked about a lot with this initiative is trying to make those connections. So, if you're a library person on this call and you're trying to figure out, how do I connect with Safe Routes people in my community? Like we encourage you to, ask us where we work with communities across the country and we're happy to make those connections. And then same thing with our Safe Routes practitioners who might be wondering, who, I haven't connected with my local library. Like, how do I reach out? Who do I talk to? How can I figure out if I have a makerspace? We're happy to kind of help facilitate those interactions too, because it does take everybody kind of lending their own areas of, expertise and interest to really make safe routes work. And I think you're a great example of what the possibilities are, in the possibilities of what this could look like just from your experience in Billings. And then how much farther there is to go, right? So like we draw these amazing things and it's like, what's next? What can we improve on next? So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here, Taylor. This was really inspiring and a really great example of what Safe Routes to Libraries looks like and could be. So just appreciate the work that you're doing and thanks for being our first presenter on our Safe Routes to Libraries virtual learning series. You're
Thank
yeah,
you.
thanks for kind of starting us off on the right note here.
Yeah.
Um, there is one more question here in the chat that I wanted to acknowledge because it's about working in like small libraries. So we, even with our Safe Routes to School programs, we work with a lot of like small communities, rural communities where there might not be a whole lot of capacity to do a lot of safe routes work, either from the library's end or from the community's end. And so I'm happy to answer this question, but I also like to throw it out to the group if you all have any ideas or insights around running safe routes programs, either from a library perspective or from a safe routes perspective, in a small community where there might not be a lot of capacity to do, new initiatives. There might not be enough time or resources. How do you kind of do, how do you make safe routes work in smaller or rural communities, or communities might just not have a whole lot of resources? So like I said, I'm happy to share some ideas, but I know some of the people on this call also have great ideas. So I'll throw it out to you all first, and then I'll share some of my ideas. And you can either drop it in the chat or come off mute, whatever you'd like to do.
Hi, I'm Amanda Roberts. I work at Billings Public Library in Littleton. Colorado, which is a very small community compared to Denver, which is where I live and where I advocate for pedestrian safety on one of our boards. So I think, Mike, this is a very good question for me that I've been thinking through because Littleton is growing, but it still thinks of itself as this cute, tiny community, which it is. So I'm curious if anybody has implemented co-design principles, maybe work with a local advocate to kind of create this relationship where the makerspace is included, but community is planning what the makerspace looks like in similar kind of programs. That's just a thought and a question if anybody has some thought. That's where my brain is headed right now. That's what I'm hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that getting involved in, like local planning definitely has that opportunity. There are a few things actually in our resource center about how libraries can get involved in local planning processes. And I think, Katie, I don't know if you put that Massachusetts example in the impact brief or not, but we can share that one too. And it might come up in our GIS session next week. We have a really good example from a small community in Massachusetts that they created like a story map as a part of I think it was a comprehensive plan, and incorporated the library as like one of those key destinations and one of those elements they're really considering as they're building out their town's plan. So I'd say like if your town or community is currently in a safe routes planning process, it could be safe routes to school, it could be a traffic safety plan, just like having a seat at the table, like being a part of that committee, providing feedback, offering your insights could be a great way to kind of get some of the library's priorities on the radar when it comes to, what local planning can look like. And we have a few other examples we are, happy to share with you from the resource center as well. So that's a really great, great suggestion. Any others for running safe routes programs in small communities, rural communities? I see one in the chat. We're working with our local health department and a local biking club to offer bike clinic programs where we help community members repair and maintain their bikes. Yeah, so we hear a lot of communities say, or a lot of people say that, people might not be biking because their bike is broken or they don't have a bike. And so we've seen, some communities who've been working on like, bike repair. I'd say another one is, like I mentioned earlier, we have safe routes programs all across the country. And so there might be a local safe routes person either in your community or in your state. Matt Berkey, I'm not sure if you're still on from Iowa, but you're kind of like my go-to Iowa rural community safe routes person. I know that you've done a lot of work supporting safe routes activities in small and rural communities in Iowa and doing things like, bike rodeos and other bike education events. So again, if you're somebody who's like in one of those smaller communities and wants to make a connection with a local safe routes person, please let us know. We probably know somebody who's in your area or knows somebody who knows someone who's in your area who can kind of bring, some additional support and resources so it doesn't feel like you're doing everything, everything alone. And that could be a safe routes to school coordinator. It could be somebody working on safe routes to parks. It could be somebody who's just a local bike ped advocate. We're happy to connect you. Heather, I see you on the call too, talking about your Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day pilot. I remember that from last year, and doing like a story walk. I think that you're a really great example of what safe routes work can look like in small and rural communities. So thanks for putting that in there in the chat as well. And we're happy to share more about the Ruby Bridges opportunities too when it comes to safe routes work. All right, so we are actually at time. We had a whole like breakout discussion group plan, but this just went so well and the conversation was flowing, so I didn't want to mess things up. But I did want to just kind of do a quick wrap up here today, and then I will send you all off and on your way here. So again, huge thank you to Taylor for presenting today. We will be back in August, on August 11th, for a session about exploring the new Safe Routes to Libraries GIS tool. We'll have a data expert from Urban Libraries Council come and share about this new tool that'll be released in a few weeks. So we're excited about that. If you've registered for this session, you're automatically registered for August. So no additional registration. You can just hop right on. It'll be the same link. I'll send out a reminder before the next session. And then also, if you have questions or want to make those safe routes connections or library connections, please let me know, let Katie know. We're happy to connect you with people in your area. And then after the session, I'll send out the recording, the slide deck, and the Menti results. Any final questions before we hop off for today? All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate it. It was great to see you in the chat, see you on the Menti, see you giving little hearts and shout outs, see you asking questions. We're really excited about our following two sessions and are just excited to kick off some other really great Safe Routes to Libraries work over the next few weeks. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you in August. And another big thank you to Taylor. You're so awesome and such inspiration. Thanks so much for
Thank
being here.
you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.